with this at this point. So, but let me just open the floor. I'm here to answer any questions that you might have about the program, the training, where we stand with our enrollment. At this point in time, we have 24 people enrolled, and we've heard from several others that they're intending to get their application in during the next week. So waiting to hear with bated breath on that. So let me, I don't know that there's anything else for me to start with this conversation. If someone, so let's just soon have a question and to start with. Fabiano, I am curious, what brings you to you've just graduated, what brings you to this meeting? There you go, I unmuted you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. A colleague for the training, Dennis, he told me about this, and I got curious. It's a curiosity about what is, because what he told me, I briefly read. It's a kind of a different Feldenkrais training, but it's still, and I got curious to understand better.
Yes.
Not just, but yes, just.
Yeah, the main intention is that the student population will people that are devoted to wanting to become practitioners or to combine this work with work they already have existing. So in many classes in the United States, a high percentage of the people are not in the training program to become practitioners. They come for the personal experience.
Yeah.
And the point is that I believe that if we're going to make the Feldenkrais method a more known profession, then we have to have people graduate with professional standards. And professional standards to me means that giving one ATM practicum is not enough. And thanks. And sorry, I'm moved. And I don't believe giving 2 FI practicums is enough. So I think that people need to have given a minimum of 50 ATM lessons before they can apply for their practicum. I believe they need to have given 100 lessons in order to graduate, so that they have a high level of competence and they can assess their own competence by the time they graduate from a program. And I don't believe most training programs have that intention. I don't believe the programs actually have the intention of having people join their guild as highly skilled, competent beginning practitioners. The other, I think that a person needs to have practiced a minimum of 50 FI lessons before they apply for their FI practicum. I think they need to give 100 FI lessons in order to graduate. I think that if you were to join into and take a master's degree class in psychology or in social work, then the amount of work and the application you would make to join into that field as a professional, you would expect to have a fairly stringent curriculum to follow. I believe that the same kind of curriculum practitioners, so that when a Feldenkrais practitioner graduates, that they can go into the marketplace and have for themselves a very profoundly, deep sense of self-confidence, and a sense that they know how to assess the areas that they're really strong in and assess the areas where they need most to develop themselves, and have the means to assess themselves, develop learning plans, and to learn to fill in the areas where they're still weak. And the point of the training is to see that they have a very strong foundation in how to become a really first-class Feldenkrais practitioner in the world. I believe that people who graduate from training programs need to know how to market themselves and how to build a business plan. I believe that people who graduate from Feldenkrais trainings need to assess themselves, I believe that people who graduate from Feldenkrais trainings need to have first-class neurological cognitive science information available to them as to where they can find that information, so that they are well versed in, as a practitioner, entering into and being able to meet different professional practitioners in other fields and come across like a professional. So I believe those are all necessary parts of a training program. And I don't believe that that's the standard that most Feldenkrais training programs work to. And I've done this program out of my own disappointment from the results of previous trainings that I've given, because I don't believe that I had that I taught to the standard that I wanted people to be able to achieve. Many times people leave the training programs, and in order to be able to be successful, they go off and they study other practices. I don't have a problem with that, except for they end up not utilizing this method to the complete capability that this method offers. And it's very difficult. There's a story that Feldenkrais is giving in Amherst, and he's talking about a time when he was learning something about his own work, but he basically said that one of his lessons at that point in time was worth the value of 10 lessons from any other practitioner. And he said that in order to get results, his students go to other places to acquire skills so that they can produce results. And he said, I don't know how the results come. I'm not in the place in myself. I'm not working from the paradigm that I produce results. I'm in the place where I'm with a person in such a way that results are formed. And it's completely different to be in the place where you apply methods to create results, as opposed to being in the state from which results appear. And the point of the training is to have the skill level to listen and to have an idea of how to listen and to help a person with their own internal process that the person brings out what's implicit and inherent within them, which is their own ability to learn. So I'm seeking to, in fact, I intend completely to hold a program that invites a whole other level of professional standard for the people that graduate from a program. So, hi, Beth. Nice to see you.
Mm.
What do you do for a living, Fabiano? Now you're a Feldenkrais teacher.
Yes, I do give ATM classes.
Uh-huh.
And I also sell tensegrity toys. I do tensegrity artwork.
Uh-huh. And you're living in Brazil at this point?
Yes. I live in São Paulo at the moment, and now I'm also with Hans. You told he got a Feldenkrais, also a special group training. Is not the international classic training, but he got, and I'm part of the team as well, helping.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Wonderful. All right. So Beth, what brings you to this question and answer session?
Well, I am just a sponge for Feldenkrais types of things. I'm a physical therapist and definitely recognize some of what you described earlier, and I kind of put it in the chat about how...
Yes, I saw what you said.
I think what you described as what you would like to bring about through this training is something that I have felt when I observe and or listen to more experienced trainers that I felt was missing, which is that ability to bring forth the person's own ability to shift. You know, that we are the catalyst for that, but we don't like make things happen. And and as a physical therapist, I was trained very differently than that, for sure. And that we are more of the mechanistic thing that makes things happen, versus the catalyst. And so, and it's a bit of both, but certainly having trained as a Feldenkrais practitioner after physical therapy training, my takeaway from my training had a very strong physical therapist flavor to it. So it was a bit techniquey or that kind of thing.
Right.
And so I lost some of the nuances that would have allowed me to do more. And I know that somehow intuitively along the way, I've gotten some experiences like that, but it feels like they're almost happening by accident as opposed to being really a part of the process. That is my experience with my clients and students.
Well, let me just speak to that for just a moment, because I believe that what you consider to be by accident actually is some way that you were touched by the training process that created deep, deep seeds that take a while to germinate, and that they begin to show up. And because you can't unobserve yourself. Right. So if you're in the process and you're asking the questions and how do I continue to refine myself, then the unconscious in the pre-verbal world, you'll continue to work these things out, and you'll have these moments of synthesis where things come together, and it'll be surprising. But it comes out of so to speak, an internal realm that isn't linear. And when you've been trained in a linear process, a diagnostic process where you're applying methods, applying techniques, as opposed to being in a phenomenological method where you learn from your observations and your ability to listen and to sense and to touch, and you've learned something from all the ATMs that you did, something is etched within you, and it knows how to ask these questions. You just may not be so comfortable with that whole process yet, especially if your sense of well-being is determined by your sense of what you can produce. Mm-hmm. If your sense of meaning is profoundly related to outcomes. Now, the very paradigm of the Feldenkrais method, the most difficult aspect that I believe of the method is to set that paradigm aside so that the other paradigm of your own internal capacity begins to emerge, this sense of caring for yourself rather than your conditioning, the sense of your own internal brilliance begins to appear, and you're invited into the field of utilizing in the background everything you know, but being present to the moment with what is arriving in the moment. And that's the most, one of the most difficult things for a person to come to.
I think some of the best experiences I've had have been when I hear Mark was my trainer, Mark Reese,
sure,
saying, trust the method.
Yeah.
And particularly when I might feel like insecure about what I can bring to the situation, and I literally just stop and close my eyes and take a deep breath and hear that mantra. And often, that's when things seem to go the best for me. So, just being able to park the rest of what I theoretically know and allow it to emerge in that way. Yeah.
I think for many Feldenkrais people, the nature of the training process, while it has within it the clear, explicit biological, biomechanical principles, then we explore them in awareness through movement. But I don't believe that for most practitioners, that actual ability to take those principles and activate them in our moment-by-moment daily life is necessarily intact within us. And so that's very, very much a part of what I've been doing for the last number of years. My my advanced graduate course I call IOPS, Ideal Organization of Profound Strength. It's basically for people to come very deeply in touch with the biological principles that support a person in the way they support themselves through their skeleton, through their life, the way that they lift, the way they turn, the way they can view another person so they have a sense of what's possible for another. And this training will be organized that way. And it'll be very interesting because I'm inviting practitioners to be on the floor with students, like an Aikido class, which is not common. But I think that it's great for students to be on the floor with practitioners. There will be very, very clear ideas that will be given as to how practitioners and students will work together, because there will be very, very clear rules in the training about how we'll give feedback. And Candy Konino will provide us with those experiences. Do you know Candy? So Candy is the director of learning for this training program. So she's going to be the one that helps people understand the Feldenkrais practitioner profile, the basic competences of a practitioner, and then for people to self-assess, to self-study, and then the way that we'll work together in open-ended ways, asking open-ended questions rather than directing feedback. And that's a little bit hard to talk about. It's much more easy to practice. But for the most part, there will only be feedback given when the person who's say I've been the practitioner in an experiment, when I ask for feedback. And I get to determine when the feedback takes place, where the feedback takes place, what the feedback will be, what the topic of the feedback will be, and I'll get to determine how the feedback is given, so that I will have the ability to maintain my autonomy and to have people provide information for me if I want it. But for the most part, we'll do something else. It'll be like, you've been giving a lesson, and I'm sitting outside and I'm saying, at this point in the lesson, I noticed that you did this. Can you tell me what was your thinking at that moment? So that you have to go into your own resource and bring that out. And so that each time that you work, there will be always this process of open-ended kind of questions that will appear to help you understand that, oh, yes, in fact, I did know what I was doing. Yeah, I did have a clue. It may not have been in my consciousness, and if I'm not careful, I would let myself think that I didn't know what I was doing. This is very important because we can continue to maintain the thoughts of our inadequacy unless we can completely dissemble that. Yeah, so that's very important to this training program. Suzanne, do you have something to ask? Or Beth, is there something else you'd like to ask, or you're good? Okay, great. I got you, Suzanne. I think. I can't unmute you for whatever reason.
I think it's because I've muted myself. So,
oh, okay.
So I heard on one of your previous presentations, one of the questions that I had was about being able to practice in various states because of licensure.
Yes.
One of the states that I'm looking at is Alaska, and one of that I'm looking at is Minnesota. I don't know where we're going to be in 2 years, but I don't want to have to go through this entire training program. And then I know when I was living in Alaska, I remember they had something about that was that you had to have a massage license or something. A Rolfer was trying to contact me to sign petitions and stuff. So I don't know where that all ended up and how. I tried going on the website to try and find out more information about it, but it was all kind of just Greek.
Yeah, the only states I know of that there's a difficulty are Texas and Florida, and potential major difficulties coming up in Massachusetts.
Okay.
And the Rolfing people are part of the massage law because people disrobe.
Okay.
And so the Rolfers have people, who have to take their clothes off for the process. We don't have that process. We have agreements that as long as people maintain their certification in 26 states, that as long as people maintain their certification, that the massage law is not applicable to them. If they practice without being certified, without having the guild overseeing their certification, which means their ongoing educational process, then in those states, like here in the state of Washington, if someone stopped practicing, stopped maintaining their certification, then the massage people would have the right to come after them and require them to take a massage course to continue their work.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that that's a really valid question, and I think that we should actually find the states that those agreements with the guild are applicable in, and I'll see if I can't, pursue that a little bit more clearly. I'm pretty sure that at this point in time, the only two states that are clearly require massage law are Texas and Florida, and I do know that there is potential major difficulty in Massachusetts.
Okay. Then the other question is, you began by talking with I can't remember his name, the fellow's name. Was it Fabiano or
Fabiano?
Yeah.
Can you speak Portuguese?
Not me. But you were talking about having 50 ATMs required before you do your practicum.
Yes.
And then 100 lessons to graduate, and that's with both ATM and FI.
Yes.
You made that sound like that's what I would love to have, but is that what it really is?
That's what it really is.
Okay.
In this class, that is what it really is.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that and clarify that was.
That is a requirement for graduation, and the requirements go a little bit further than that, in the sense that you'll be asked to teach a full day themed workshop, and you'll be asked to have a working knowledge of about 30 ATM lessons. A working knowledge, it doesn't mean memorized. It means that you know where to get them. You know how to. You have a sense of the lessons. There will be the completion of all the material. That means the going through the Amherst material and the completion of all the readings and the assignments that come along through the training program.
Mm-hmm.
Jeff, I wanted to say something about this.
Yeah, please.
I
Beth,
I got here late, so I don't know whether my reputation preceded me or not.
Well, I just want to make sure that everybody. I'd like to introduce Allison Rapp, who will provide the business planning and marketing aspect of our training program, and we'll work with everybody in the training program from day one through the training program. So I want to make sure that you're recognized.
Thank you. I have been working with practitioners for the last 8 or 9 years on helping them build a practice. And one of the things that has been there are two things that are really interesting to me. One is that a lot of the people who come to me have got 5, 10, 15, 20 years of experience and are not earning a living. One of the things that says to me is that people have absolutely extreme dedication to the Feldenkrais method, that they're still slogging, trying to make it work without really earning something that could be called a living. The other thing that it says to me is that training programs have not provided what it takes to earn a living. So that's the one thing. The second thing is that most of the time, when people come and they tell me that they don't feel confident, which is a major reason that people haven't earned a living, that when I ask them, I say, close your eyes and just go inside, and a number is going to appear to you, and just take that number and accept it and give it to me. And the question is, what is the number of lessons that you would need to give in order to feel confident? Every single practitioner can give me a number. And what I find is that it varies usually between 30 and like 100. 100 is where people are if they didn't practice at all during their training. 30 is where they might be if they practice quite a bit, but they haven't done it for a long time and they never were really sure. But everybody has some idea of what they didn't do in their training program that would have made them capable of going out and earning a living. So when I hear Jeff say this number of 100, it sounds absolutely right on the money for me about what people need, because when you've got that under your belt and you know that you can do that with people, you can go out and you can work. Now, one of the big reasons that people don't do it in the training program is that they don't know how to find the people to do it with. And that's one of the things that we're going to be dealing with in this training. You're not going to have that much trouble. You're going to be going from the beginning of the training into the mode of, how can I talk about this in a way that people will get interested? How can I make people interested? And how can I get the people onto the floor when it's time to practice ATM, and then onto my table when it's time to practice FI? And what's going to happen is that you're going to have a pathway for doing that will make it possible for all of this to actually happen relatively seamlessly, so that it's not like climbing Mount Everest to give those 100 lessons. So I think it's a really important thing to point out, because I think, I listen to these numbers and I think, whoa, if I were starting, from nowhere solid to apply to this training program, I would think this is like, I need a training program that doesn't have requirements like that. That's like really a lot. But the reality is that the structure of this training is designed in such a way that you will have the support that you need to meet every one of those requirements.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can I make a question? How would be the training for practitioners as an online training, as a staying outside North America? How is everything because you have out from the intensive, you have ongoing activities, right?
Yeah.
And I just like to understand what part is connected online and what's.
Another thing. It's not complete.
Another thing I didn't.
Yeah, the online aspect is not completely formed yet, to be perfectly honest with you. We're so far into the process of simply seeing if we can to put this first part together. The online process is sort of secondary to us, but we will be able to, I believe we'll be able to broadcast the training. It's not difficult, just using Zoom to broadcast it. It won't be, you'll sort of be in the room with it. You won't have a live camera that's falling all around, but you'll be in the room with it. This training program has built within it something that's unique to other training programs. In other words, every 2 weeks, you'll be in a mentoring class. Everybody in the training program will every 2 weeks have a mentoring class that will be guided by me, so that we see, in general, we see a significant erosion of people's abilities they go to a segment, and then there are long periods of time between the next segment. They may or may not practice something that they learned, but for the most part, there's a pretty profound erosion between what takes place. I have to mute some. Okay, I think Suzanne was. And we don't want that erosion. We want to have the sense that you're in an ongoing process. So there will be mentoring groups, and the mentoring groups will be based on time zones. In other words, there will be probably three sessions every 2 weeks that will be given at times when people will be able to tune in. Yeah, and I think the main that the mentoring groups, as far as I believe at this point in time, will include the practitioners who are there, the people that have signed up to be in the training program. Yeah, we have a number of practitioners who are coming back to the training and have signed up for the whole training again. And I'm thrilled that they will, because I think that there'll be a backbone. I think there'll be a solid a solid citizen in the training process. So I'm thrilled about that. I want to talk about two other things though, it's a person can be endorsed in the regular training programs for awareness through movement teaching after the second year. Here, the endorsement comes up after you've completed your practicum. You become endorsed to teach awareness through movement for money. We want to help you actually take what you know, take your awareness through movement endorsement in relationship to what other field you might have. We want to help you come to the place where you can utilize your time, your experience of teaching then to help yourself make money to help pay for your tuition. We want this process to actually support you being in the training program. And to go on with that, this is the first training where it's ever been done that a person who completes their FI practicum will be endorsed to teach FI before graduating from their training program. It's never been done before. Always FI has always been granted at the end of the fourth year after an FI practicum. The standard for an FI practicum in most common trainings now is 2 FIs. 2 FIs that are given under supervision. 1 ATM practicum that's given under supervision, and it's not even a complete ATM. For the most part, in classes, 3 people get together and a person teaches the beginning, a person teaches the middle, and a person teaches the end. A few comments are made, and that's how they get that's how they're approved by their educational director to teach the training program. That's not the educational director's fault. They could do other things, but that's the guidelines that we have at this moment. And again, if we're going to bring people to a professional standard where they're confident in themselves and competent as beginning practitioners, then we have to see to it that they really have done significant work to prepare themselves. Now, I'm not kidding when I tell you that somewhere between my 3rd and 4th year, I gave 800 to 1,000 FI lessons. Yeah. Now, I had a situation where, and it was because I was dedicated, I knew this was the way I was going to make my living. But what I did was really simple. My poor brother, every morning, before I was living in an apartment with him, and before he'd go to work, I'd put him on the table, and I'd work with something. He'd come home. He was a painter at the time. I'd put a sheet on my table, and he'd get a lesson before he even got a chance to get to the shower. Now, the poor man was so abused by this that it wasn't long before he started inviting his friends over. Now, in the process, and I'm telling you, this is not in any way an exaggeration. And it wasn't long before he was the one that started, having all of his friends who were painters and athletes and whatever coming over. And out of the course of that, a woman was invited over who was running a natural health clinic, and she provided me 8 lessons a day for the months between my 3rd year of my training and the 4th year of my training. And I didn't say that I was practicing functional integration. I said my work is inspired by the work of Moshe Feldenkrais. And I had not a clue what I was doing, but I made up 1,000 lessons. And I made those lessons up based on what I'd observed watching Moshe work. Yeah. Now, and it's not hard to imagine. Yeah, if you have a particular propensity. Now, our job is to get people to find that means that sense in themselves that will say, I'm willing to have a person on the table and find and be with them in such a way that something begins to appear. They walk better, they sit better, they stand, they're breathing, the way that they organize their head and eyes, the way that they have a sense of dignity about themselves. And so that you out of some sense of caring and listening, you invite a person to find that within themselves. And so our job is to have you have the means within yourself to overcome all the thoughts that you would have that would make you anxious. Where there's something so substantial that you can deal with your own anxiety and your own insecurity. And that, in and of itself, is the Feldenkrais method. In and of itself, that's the method. Body Mature Behavior, this book by Feldenkrais, this book, is nothing other than you can see the title, A Study of Anxiety, Sex, Gravitation, and Learning. But it's basically a letter to Sigmund Freud saying, that Freud's ideas on neurosis and the treatment of neurosis were silly. If you bring a person into a high quality state of being supported internally by themselves in such a way that their muscular habit does not hide their neurosis, that person is free to live in a different way. And the book is real simple when you read it in this way. Now, this is what we have to have happen in the training program. People have to find their own quality of internal reserve, support, self-reliance, and to be able to live in themselves with the anxious thoughts and the nerves that go with anxiety, insecurity. So that's the point. Our point of our program is to find the very nature of the organization within ourselves that we can support ourselves in the most difficult situations in such a way that we actually are healthy. Healthy meaning that we can move upstream in times of complexity rather than have the times of complexity lead to increased stress and more protection within ourselves. And again, that's the method. The method is designed that way. It's a question for us to learn how to utilize the method to help people with ourselves and the people that we come in contact with to find their own means for that sense of empowerment, that sense of being able to live their life more the way they would like to live it, or they can imagine themselves living it.
Jeff, I have a story about that book.
Yeah.
In our training, Moshe told us why he wrote that book and how he wrote it and why it's so dense. But what he said was basically about Freud, that the most important thing that Freud did was have people lie down. And that his own putting himself at the head of the person where the person couldn't see him was born of Freud's own neurosis.
Right.
At being unable to face people and look them in the eye. And that having them lie down was the most important thing he did, and that we should keep that in mind because most people will be better after they lie down for an hour anyway. And that when we practice, we should be careful not to screw that up. Don't do anything that gets in the way of the fact that they would be better if they just lay down on your table and did nothing.
And you also told the story that Freud himself said that his own method, his own psychoanalysis would become obsolete as we understood more about neurology. And we have to remember that Moshe, as a premier scientist in Europe, wrote that book so that he wouldn't embarrass himself with his scientific colleagues. So it is dense, but it's actually not so dense.
That's actually not why it's so dense. It's dense partly. I mean, I'm sure partly it's about that, but it used to be bigger. And he looked and looked for a publisher and couldn't find one. And he finally got a publisher who said, we'll publish it, but it has to be shorter. So Moshe went through and took out all the words that would have made people understand it before they take their training program.
Oh, that's funny. Okay, so Beth, I'm going to share the screen for a moment so that you can see the website. Okay, and I'll lead you through it for a moment. Okay. Hang on a second here. I have to do a little something here. Oh shoot, that was the wrong one. Okay, just give me a moment here. Hang on. Okay, that's there. I'm coming. All right, so let me invite you to see the website. This is called Feldenkrais Training Academy.com. And you have a question about what's happening with the training. I would like to invite you to, under the training, under the menu heading, the training, if you'll go down and you'll see at the very bottom, you'll see practitioner participation. And so it has all of the details for practitioner participation. If you go a little bit further up on training info, you'll see all of the dates on the very first page. You'll see the dates, and it's pretty comprehensive, the the training. You can see the pricing options for Feldenkrais practitioner, pricing options for trainees, and I think you'll be excited to actually read the curriculum and the faculty and staff. So Feldenkrais Training Academy.com. Okay, so you can take your time and browse it. Now, if you have any questions about it, then you can contact me at jeff@insidemoves.org. And I will arrange a private Zoom call with you. Okay? So that I'm just typing in my email address. So I'm happy to have any of you contact me for any kind of further questions that you have with regards to being a part of this, part of the program. Sure, my pleasure. Any other questions? Anything else I can help you with? Hang on a second here. So Suzanne, when is your application coming in? I was just checking.
On the recommendation letter.
Send in the application and send in the letter later.
Okay. We'll do.
Yeah. Don't let these things.
I was going to ask you that, and I thought, well, maybe I'm giving her another couple of days, and then I'll and then I was going to email you and say, can I just submit it without that?
Hell, I'll write the recommendation letter for you. I've had enough conversations with you that I feel confident that I can write a letter of recommendation for you.
Okay.
So the whole thing is resolved with East Coast, West Coast, and Alaska, and all these things.
Yeah. So as resolved as it's going to be for right now. So yeah.
Well, I'm very excited that you're going to apply. It touches me. I've enjoyed our conversations to this point. I'm really looking forward to being in class with you.
I can't wait.
Yeah, good. It's wonderful. Someone's typing. Okay, ask me anything. About my personal life, whatever you want to know about me.
What's your skeleton wearing?
My skeleton came and I wasn't here when it came, so it sat in the box for a week and its chest got crushed. And so I am slowly reinflating because it's plastic, I think that I can reform the chest. So right now I have stuffed it with, it's stuffed, the ribs are stuffed, and I'm gradually bringing the sternum back out.
Uh-huh. Are you using a heating pad with it?
No, not yet, but it's been warm enough here. So
yeah, well,
the next couple of days it's warm, I'll actually have it sit outside and I'll bend it some more. So
raise your hand if it's not abnormally warm where you are.
It's right today. It's very cool here. We've had rain today. So,
I went out today and our air quality has been really miserable. And today it was 70. It's been like 150, 160. And I went out today at 4 o'clock and came back before 5, and it was 76 when I went out and 120 something when I came back.
So, you're talking temperature or air quality? Because
air quality, it sucks.
Oh, okay.
And the temperature's not good either, but the air quality is terrible.
I'm sorry.
I know. You get those.
I'm a structural integrator when it comes to my skeleton. There ain't no nervous system here. It's all about force. Force and shape. Ability also.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah. So Beth, you have such a lovely demeanor. Would you comment more about your questions and tell me a little bit more about yourself? What are you looking for personally?
I think my biggest problem is I'm a learnaholic.
You have to be in this method because
and in
learning
life,
is inherent.
really.
Yeah.
I think that there's a mixture of things that have been going on for me. I mean, I've been dabbling with the method since '94.
Yeah.
I didn't start my training till '97, finished in 2000. So roughly 20 years with the method, but 30 years plus as a physical therapist. I've been fortunate to be able to incorporate the method quite a lot in my work, which, I think is not always true for people. But for the last, I went from working for 15 years in an orthopedic setting that was very medical and very insurance-based. And over the last 3 years, I've just started cash-based, wellness-oriented physical therapy practice, where I do, of course, Feldenkrais, I do medical therapeutic yoga, I do nutrition, and, all of the things that are encompassed in all of that. So I think because I'm not now in the pushed scenario that I was in, I have the ability and the intention and the wish to be more focused on the time and the quality and the time that really could have, been applied with the method as I was doing it all along. So I've had people be, sweetly complimentary of the fact that I could do something with Feldenkrais in 30 minutes in my time-based situation, in the medical model.
Right.
But I also know that it was in that scenario for all those years that I lost the ability to pause and have this intuitive sense, have the, the sort of non-structured, non-techniquey stuff that we were talking about earlier.
Right. The deep
Does that
listening.
make sense?
Yeah, the deep listening. Yeah.
Yes. And so, certainly.
And to really truly grasp the profound neurophysiology that's within that as an advantage for the work.
Yes.
This is where Roger Russell comes in, for us to really have this really clear understanding that of the very nature of the process has within it such clear physiological principles that if we adhere to them, the results are, you can trust the method at that point. Right.
Yeah, so just a really brief example of something that I discovered pretty recently. There's an elderly woman that I've been working with since I opened my practice, so I've now been working with her for 3 years. She came to me with an extremely dysfunctional gait and upright posture. And I now have her to where she can sit and get a forward tilt of her, pelvis for a lumbar spine extension and a lifting and opening of her chest. It has literally taken me that long because she had 20 years of this horrible habit before. But the interesting piece about her is that over the last 3 to 4 months, I recognized that when I was doing something that was deeply important for her to be able to achieve the things that I just described, there was a shift in her scent that I picked up on.
Yes.
This is like a very different physiological tuning in. Like, obviously I know to look for the breath and I can feel what's changing in her skeletal ability to follow my hands or whatever. But this was a very different recognition that there was like this. It's almost like, you think about those air fresheners that, do that. But it was like her body was going, this is something, because it wasn't constant. It's not like she came in with body odor or anything, but there was this little shift. Right. And so that's the kind of thing that I'm fascinated by and want to be more and better attuned to. So,
do you mind if I ask where you live?
Lynchburg, Virginia.
Oh my goodness! You trained with you. Oh, so you were in West Virginia in the West Virginia training?
No, I actually.
That would be Allison.
I went to San Diego from here to do that training.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
The weather is better in San Diego.
It's incredible. I was born in LA, so it was a wonderful revisit to California for me. So.
And they were both marked training, so
yes.
It's great. I would have gone to San Diego too.
Well, the thing is that the West Virginia training, logistically would have made a whole lot more sense. But the year that started, I had just started my first private practice. And I was the first woman-owned private practice in this town. And if I had left, for 2 months at a time after just starting a private practice, it would have been dead in the water. There's just no way I would have been taken seriously. So, I had to wait those few years to start the one in 97. So,
well, the weather in the Northwest can be beautiful and it can be awful. So just.
I have to say, really and truly, weather is the worst reason for picking a training. I mean, here's the thing. I think people pick a training for a lot of different reasons. And like people go to exotic places because they want to visit an exotic place. And I think that really the best reason to pick a training is that it meets the need that you have. Right. And so if you want to be a practitioner, picking a training that's loaded with people who want to be practitioners makes a lot of sense. And if that were held on top of like an iceberg, I think it would be worth going to that one if it were the only one that did it. So, personally speaking.
All right, we're almost up with our time. It is my wife's birthday. My children just arrived, and they were picking up food, and we have tickets to an event for her this evening. So I'm going to leave everybody, unless there's one last hurrah. I'd like to thank Laura just to let you know, Laura is the administrator, not the administrator, the program manager for this program, and she and I have spent 1 million hours, and along with Allison and other people in our organization to bring this to life. And so I'd like to recognize Laura for her support in this, Allison for the countless hours that we've spent, and for the joy that we're going to have as this whole thing comes to fruition and comes to life, because I think at this point in time, I can tell you that the people who have signed up are the most dynamic and incredible group of people that I've ever been associated with in a training program. And it will be a testament in the way that all of us will be able to work together to support each other. I think it'll be a profound training process. So, right. So Beth, I hope I get to see an application from you sometime in the near future as well. You're invited.
Thank you.
So enjoy the reading, and if you have questions, please just give me a call.
Great, thanks.
All right, Elizabeth, you going to come take the training too? Where's your daughter? I haven't heard from her in a while.
She's got her hands full.
I know she needs to have her hands. She needs to have her hands more full.
True. You might get me, but probably not her.
Okay. She's the youth movement. All right, gotta go. Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Say happy birthday to Mary.
I will. You're going to turn off the recording before we stop?
Sure.